The last time I saw my mother, she was standing in our tiny kitchen in Akron, Ohio, screaming at me to get out of her house. Now she's standing at the gates of my mansion, gripping the bars like a prisoner, and begging me to let her in. The intercom on the wall is still buzzing when I stop in front of it. The screen is black, no video feed, just a little blinking green light, but I can hear the wind through the wrought iron bars and my mother's voice, thinner than I remember. Soaked in panic. Please, she says. Please, just talk to us. Behind her voice, I can hear a man coughing, a car idling. Someone's foot keeps tapping against metal, rhythmic, nervous. I know that sound from my own body, years of jiggling my leg under cheap tables, waiting for something to give. I could hit a single button and open the gates. Another button, and they'd swing shut forever. The chose sits in my chest like a stone. The marble under my bare feet is cold. You ever notice that? Rich people's floors are always cold. No one tells you that part. You see the polished stone, the sweeping staircase, the high ceilings, and you don't think about how your toes curl against it first thing in the morning. I know you're there, my mother says. They told us you live here. We wouldn't be here if we had any other choice. I place my thumb on the little brass talk button, but I don't push it yet. I just feel the give of it. How little pressure it would take to let my voice out into the driveway. I haven't heard her voice in 14 years. 14 years since I was a kid with a backpack and nowhere to go. 14 years since she watched me walk out into the dark and decided not to call me back. Let me tell you something, I say quietly, but not into the intercom. Just to the empty foyer, to you, to the ghosts that live in the corners of this ridiculous house. Let me tell you how we got here, because you have to understand what that kitchen looked like. You have to know what it felt like to be 14, standing in the rain with one backpack, listening to the deadbolt slide into place behind you. You have to see the whole thing if you're going to understand what I decide to do now. So come back with me for a minute. Before the marble floors, before the gates, before the news articles and the bank accounts and the lawyers and the private security guys who sleep with guns under their pillows. Come back to a 2-bedroom house in Akron that always smelled like fried onions and cigarette smoke. In my first memory of my mother, she's laughing. People are always surprised when I say that. When they hear the end of this story, they picture some monster. But the first version of her I remember is sitting cross-legged on our cleanest rug, which wasn't very clean, leaning over a jigsaw puzzle with me. She's got this big loose ponytail, wisps of hair stuck to her forehead, and there's a stain on her t-shirt from where I apparently threw applesauce at her earlier. She's laughing because I'm trying to jam a piece into the wrong spot. I'm 3, maybe 4, and I'm furious at the cardboard for not doing what I want. I'm making these frustrated little grunts, and she's wiping her eyes because she's laughing so hard. Baby, it doesn't go there, she says. Turn it. Look, the shape. See the little bump? Her hands are small and quick as she turns the puzzle piece. Her nails are bitten down. When she moves, there's this faint jingle from the cheap metal bracelet my dad won her at a carnival before I was born. Sometimes I cling to that memory like evidence. Proof that she knew how to be gentle once. That there was a version of her who didn't tell a 14-year-old to get out and never come back. My dad was still around then, in that puzzle memory. At least, his tools were. The red metal toolbox in the corner. The smell of motor oil on weekends. He worked nights at a factory and drank days in the living room. When I was 5, he left. Or maybe she kicked him out. The story changed depending on who was telling it and how much they had to drink. All I know is one Tuesday I came home from kindergarten and his toolbox was gone. The empty square of worn carpet where it had sat for years was like a missing tooth. My mother was at the kitchen table with an ashtray full of burned out cigarettes, staring at nothing. Where's Dad? I asked. She flinched when I said Dad, like it smacked her. It's not coming back, she said. You've got me? That's enough. Then she stood up and dropped her mug in the sink so hard it cracked straight down the middle. I didn't know it then, but that crack was kind of like the first fault line in our house. The first sign the foundation was giving way. For a while, it was just the two of us. We lived on ramen and coupons and whatever my mother could scavenge from the clearance bin at the grocery store. Some nights she'd curl up on the couch next to me, and we'd watch game shows with the sound turned down because the neighbor's baby was sleeping and our walls were made of paper. Every once in a while, if she'd had a good week at work, she'd bring home a grocery store cake that said something generic like congrats in neon frosting. We'd eat it with forks right out of the plastic container and she'd say, see, we don't need anybody. It's you and me, kiddo. I believed her. Then Tony showed up. You know the type, even if you've never met him. New truck he couldn't afford. Leather jacket year-round, even when it was July and the air was like soup. Smile that didn't reach his eyes. He smelled like cheap cologne and the gas station where he worked, and my mother looked at him like he was her way out. I was 9 when he moved in. He didn't like that I existed. He never said that outright, at least not at first, but it was there in the way he moved around the house, in the way he rearranged things like he was erasing my dad. The toolbox was already gone, but he threw away the old carnival teddy bear my father had won for my mom. He replaced our dented silverware with some shiny set from Walmart and complained every time I left a fork in the sink. "Kid's old enough to rinse a damn dish," he'd say, standing in the kitchen with a beer, TV blasting in the background. "You gonna raise a slob?" My mother would twist her hands in that jag bracelet and say, "I'll talk to him, okay? Just don't start. Don't start." That became her favorite phrase. Don't start. Not now. Not in front of him. Don't start with your complaints, your questions, your presence. At first, Tony tried to play some weird version of stepdad. He'd buy me these cheap plastic toes from the dollar store and toss them at me like bones. "Here," he'd say. "Told the cashier I got a kid. Figured I should bring something back for you." I'd mumble thanks, and my mother would light up like a Christmas tree because she needed me to see him as some kind of provider. A man who stayed. Then my little brother was born. His name is Ryan. I still have to catch myself from calling him little, because the last time I saw him he was 14 and taller than me. But in my head he's always that squirming baby my mom brought home from the hospital, swaddled in a blue blanket that still smelled like disinfectant and new life. "Only took the one try with him," Tony said at the time, grinning, clearly proud of himself. "No practice run." He was talking about me. I knew it, even then. The house got smaller after Ryan. Not physically, of course. But the air did. The corners. The space I was allowed to take up. My mother was always tired. Always nursing or rocking the baby, or washing an endless stream of tiny onesies that never seemed fully clean. Tony's anger grew like mold in all the damp, unspoken spaces. He started drinking more. He started staying out later. When he did come home, the whole house changed around him, like we were all tiptoeing over glass. "You want a specific moment? Let me give you one." I was 11. We had this rule in the house, Tony's rule, that nobody touched his stuff. Didn't matter if his stuff was in the way or on top of my homework or blocking the microwave. You didn't touch it. My mother repeated that rule like it was part of the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not touch Tony's things. One Tuesday, I came home from school and there was a pack of his cigarettes sitting on my math workbook. I had a quiz the next day. I stood there for a full minute, just looking at it, trying to decide. Ryan was in the other room, fussing in his playpen. My mother was at work. The clock on the microwave blinked 12 o'clock at me like an accusation. "Don't touch his stuff. Do your homework." I picked up the cigarettes. I moved them 3 inches to the right so I could slide my workbook out from under them. That's all I did. That night, Tony came home smelling like beer and gasoline. He went straight to the table, like he always did, to drop his keys, his wallet, his pack of cigarettes, but they weren't where he left them. He stared at the table, at the cigarettes, 3 inches to the right. Then he turned and looked at me. "Did you touch my smokes?" I could have lied. Maybe I should have, but had been taught to tell the truth, to be honest, to not steal, not lie, not. "I had to get my book," I said. "They were on my homework." Silence. Then he laughed, a short, sharp thing that made the hair on my arms stand up. "Come here," he said. My feet felt glued to the linoleum. My mother was at the stove, stirring something that didn't need stirring, her shoulders up round her ears. She didn't look at me. "Tony, just leave it," she started. I said, "Come here." The thing about that kind of voice is that you don't argue with it. Not when you're 11 and you understand, on some animal level, that this is the sound a person makes right before they break something. I walked over. The kitchen light flickered once, like even the electricity wanted to get out. Tony picked up the pack of cigarettes, held it up like it was Exhibit A. "What's the rule?" he asked. My mouth was dry. "Don't touch your stuff." Just, his hand moved faster than my brain. He didn't hit my face. He never hit my face. His palm slammed into my chest, shoving me back into the counter hard enough that the edge bit into my spine. Air left my lungs in a rush. I remember the taste of metal in my mouth, even though I wasn't bleeding. Just that shock, that sudden conviction that my body wasn't a safe place anymore. "You think you can do whatever you want in my house?" he said, leaning over me. His breath was thick with beer. There was a little scar on his chin I'd never noticed before, white and shiny in the overhead light. You touch my stuff again, and I'll throw you and your school books out with the trash. You hear me? My mother finally turned. Tony, hiss a kid. He slammed his hand down on the counter next to me, making her flinch. Then teach your kid some respect, he said. Or I will. He walked away, the pack of cigarettes crinkling in his fist, and my mother stood there with the wooden spoon dripping tomato sauce onto the burner, her mouth opening and closing like she was searching for words that didn't exist. She didn't come to check on me that night, didn't knock on my door. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling each throb of my bruised back, and realized I couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed over a puzzle with me. That was one of the first times I understood that in our house, I was expendable. I wish I could tell you that things got better, that she left him, or stood up for me, or that we had some big tearful reckoning and started over. Instead, we just adapted. Like cockroaches in a house that keeps getting sprayed with poison. I learned to move quietly, to do my homework at the library, to come home late enough that Tony would already be zoned out in front of the TV or passed out in the bedroom. My mother learned to see less, to tell herself stories where Tony was just stressed, where I was overreacting, where everything would calm down once the bills were paid or the truck was fixed or Ryan slept through the night. And Ryan adored his dad. Kids do that. They latch onto whoever makes the loudest promises. By the time I was 14, the house felt like a pressure cooker someone had forgotten on the stove. You could hear the water boiling. You just didn't know when the lid was going to blow. The night it happened, the air outside tasted like wet metal. It had snowed in the afternoon. One of those slushy Ohio storms, where the snow turns to freezing rain just as it hits the pavement. The whole neighborhood was a patchwork of dirty ice and exhaust fumes. I remember that because I remember thinking, on the walk home from school, that my shoes were finally giving up. Water soaked through the seams and my socks squished with every step. I had my backpack on, weighed down with textbooks I was actually trying to use this year. I'd made a deal with myself over the summer. I was going to get out, somehow. I didn't know where or how, but I knew school was supposed to be my ticket. It's funny, the lies you tell yourself when you don't know what's coming. When I pushed the front door open, the first thing I noticed was the smell. Not the usual mix of fried food and cigarettes. Something heavier, sour, beer, a lot of it. The living room was a battlefield. The coffee table was shoved sideways, a lamp knocked over, one couch cushion on the floor like it had tried to escape. Tony was standing by the TV, red in the face, yelling about something. My mother was across from him, hands up like she was warding off a blow. Ryan was in the corner by the bookshelf, eyes huge, clutching his Game Boy like a life raft. You took it. Tony was shouting. Don't lie to me. My mother's voice was hoarse. Why would I take your money, Tony? I pay the goddamn bills around here. Yeah, with my paycheck. With both our paychecks. How many times have we been through this? What's going on? I asked, stepping inside and letting the door shut behind me. 3 pairs of eyes swung toward me at once. And here's the thing, in that split second, I saw a chose open up in my mother's face. I saw it as clearly as if someone had drawn 2 doors in the iron on the left, one on the right. Behind one door, she turned to Tony and said, "Stop. It wasn't him. Leave the kids out of this." Behind that door, she planted herself between me and whatever storm was brewing. Behind the other door, she let the storm change targets. Her jaw tightened. Her gaze flicked to Tony, then back to me, and I watched her walk through the second door. "It was him," she said. The words fell between us like ice. Tony turned to me, eyes narrowing. He had that particular drunk focus, where everything he wasn't thinking about evaporated. I was the only thing left. "Is that right?" he said. My throat went dry. "What are you talking about?" Tony marched toward me, each step heavy. "Somebody took $60 out of my wallet," he said. "And your mom says you've been acting different. Staying late at school. Hanging around them kids with the hoodies." Hoodies. That was his code for anyone who isn't white. We lived in a neighborhood where the only 2 black kids in my grade had basically become stand-ins for every paranoid nightmare he saw on the local news. "I was at the library," I said. "Studying." He snorted. "Yeah, studying. For what, your drug test?" My heart pounded in my ears. "I don't do drugs. I didn't take your money." He was close enough now that I could see the stubble on his chin, the little burst of broken veins around his nose. He smelled like beer and sweat and something sour under that. "Empty your pockets," he said. I had 3 things in my pockets, a library card, a crumpled Hall's cough drop wrapper, and a mechanical pencil. I pulled them out one by one, holding them up with shaking hands. "See? Nothing. I didn't take your bag," he said. Give me your goddamn bag. My backpack felt suddenly heavy on my shoulders, like it had turned into cement. I hugged it to my chest. It's just books. Then you won't mind showing me. My mother hadn't moved from her spot. She was watching us with this. Tony's face went very still. The vein in his neck, the one that always popped when the Browns were losing, started to throb. What did you say? He asked. My mother whispered, "Oh, Guy." I could have backed down. I could have said nothing and handed him the bag, and maybe that night would have ended with some yelling and another bruise I could hide under a hoodie. Strange, defeated look, like she was at a play she'd seen too many times. Ryan had inched closer to her leg, like he thought she was the safe place in the room. You gonna make me ask again? Tony said. Something in me snapped then. Not courage, exactly. More like a tiredness, so deep it felt like the bottom of a well. I said, it's just books, I muttered. And I didn't take your stupid $60. Maybe you just drank it. Silence. I swear, the whole house inhaled and held its breath. But something else came out of my mouth. Something sharp and reckless that had been building for years. I said, maybe you drank it. I repeated louder. Or maybe your dealer's lying to you. Because nobody with half a brain would sell to you on credit. You're too stupid too. His hand cracked across my cheek so hard I saw white. Pain exploded in my jaw. I stumbled back into the wall. Book slamming into my spine. My backpack had become a weapon used against me. Ryan screamed. My mother gasped, Tony, like she'd only just now realized what he was. You don't talk to me like that, he snarled. His eyes were wild, but there was something clear behind them. Something mean and cold and sober enough to make choices. Before I could recover, he grabbed the strap of my backpack and yanked. The nylon dug into my shoulder as the weight of the books pulled me off balance. The strap snapped. I fell sideways, hit my elbow on the floor. A spark of pain shot up my arm. My backpack landed in the middle of the living room. The zipper burst open on impact and my life spilled out. Textbooks, a spiral notebook with doodles in the margins, to pens with chew marks on the ends, a PB&J sandwich in a bag he had forgotten at lunch, and a folded $20 bill I didn't recognize. Tony pounced on it like a cat. He held it up between two fingers, triumph burning in his eyes. Well, he said. What we got here? My heart dropped into my stomach. That's not I've never seen, he laughed. You really think I'm that stupid? He turned to my mother. Told you. Ungrateful little thief. She opened her mouth, closed it. Her eyes were shiny, but her face had gone pale. I didn't put that there, I said. You did. You planted it. Tony's smile vanished. He lunged forward, grabbed a handful of my shirt, and yanked me to my feet. His fingers dug into my collarbone. You calling me a liar in my own house? He hissed. Follow me for more interesting stories such as this. Check my page for the next episode of this story. Watch the rest of the video.